I know it's just preseason basketball, and I'm probably overreacting, but as somebody who was already extremely high on this new and improved Thunder team, they've somehow exceeded my expectations, and I'm now even higher on them. Because they're coming off a 57-win season, it's easy to forget that OKC still has one of the youngest rosters in the entire league. And that means it's not out of the realm of possibility that they'll get better as a team this year just off of internal development alone. Take Cason Wallace for example. He's coming off a rookie campaign where he was already one of the league's best interior finishers at his position, a near 42% three-point shooter, and a solid passer. What if he's able to carry more on-ball responsibility? What would that mean for the bench unit? Another guy that comes to mind is Aaron Wiggins. I wouldn't be surprised if the 25-year-old is able to get some more minutes, and as a 6'6" wing who can score in a variety of ways, that's an awesome piece to have at the end of your rotation. However, when I talk about internal development, I'm not really as focused on the bench guys, but rather the stars. Jalen Williams is only 23 years old, entering his third season, and already looks like a more than capable number 2 option on offense. A ton of that value comes from his absurd shot-making ability, both from inside the arc and from behind the three-point line, and after watching him in the preseason, listening to some interviews, it seems like a focus for him this year will be increasing his volume from outside. So, in my opinion, the biggest thing to watch for this year with J-Dub is his pull-up three-point shooting. If you include both the regular season and playoffs, last season he attempted 117 pull-up threes, or just under 1.5 per game. It's a relatively small sample, but he made a scorching 41.9% of them. Generally speaking, elite off-the-dribble three-point shooters tend to attempt at least 3 or 4 of these a game, and if J-Dub can increase his volume to about that mark while remaining hyper-efficient, his offensive value could be taken to an entirely different level. The same exact line of thinking applies to Shai. If you remember back in 2021, pull-up threes were actually a staple in his game. But that shot sort of left his diet over the years to the point where he really only takes them when the defense is actively trying to give them up. Also, almost all of these shots were off of pound dribbles or step backs, shifting his momentum to his back foot before setting up. And the reason I think that's important to mention is because I'm not exactly sure what he did over the offseason, but he came into the preseason with a significantly smoother and quicker pull-up jumper, which he was going to with forward momentum, even pulling a couple in transition. If both Shai and J-Dub can increase their off-the-dribble three-point attempts at a high efficiency to go along with what they already do at an elite level, we could be talking about an offense that potentially rivals the likes of Indiana and Boston. As for what they already do at an elite level, well, that's where the newly acquired Isaiah Hartenstein comes in. iHart is easily the best screener either of these guys have played with in the NBA, and for downhill creators that can go a very long way. Fighting through screens to stick with elite drivers is very difficult, and defenders can't even think about overplaying the side of the screen, or they'll get hit with a move like this, resulting in an easy shot at the rim. Not only are these ball handlers able to create advantages through their slashing ability, iHart landing these big screens is a great way to create favorable matchups. From there, they can space the floor for more one-on-one play, although J-Dub's not able to knock this one down. Clearly, OKC's coaching staff understands the importance of a great screener because they've already found a ton of different ways to implement this as a tool within their system. If you remember, one of their go-to actions from last year was to have a shooter, in this case Isaiah Joe, set a go screen on the ball before clearing to the top of the key. And that's a great way to create quick, easy offense on the perimeter. But if we run it back real quick, what I really want you to focus on is Isaiah Hartenstein in the corner and how he starts to move towards the ball as it gets moved to Joe. What that does is it creates a counter. Here's another play that starts in the exact same way, except this time Joe isn't open for the 3. So he moves it over to Hartenstein on the wing, follows his own pass to set up the 2-man game, and frees up for another quality look. Having a guy like Ihart who can run the 2-man game and screen as well as he does, when paired with OKC's elite spacing, allows a weaker ball handler like Joe to serve as another shot creator. And so what they've done is actually implemented Ihart in a role similar to that of Jokic with the Nuggets. He's handling the ball in space, setting up dribble handoffs with any one of his teammates, and it's basically an automatic advantage to attack. He's great at reading the defense in these spots, directing traffic, timing up his passes, and like I said, OKC's got lots of offensive talent on their roster. As a result, not only is he maximizing these guards and wings as threats to create, they're also unlocking his game as a play finisher, this time going up top for the lob. Whenever Ihart's on the floor, Chet Holmgren is basically unleashed as a supersized wing. I don't think I even need to get into how absurd it is that a 7-footer is handing it off to a guy who's 7'1", only for that 7'1" guy to put the ball on the deck and attack the rim. In the event that Ihart's looking to hand it off to a teammate and the defense leaves him with too much space, he's even comfortable putting the ball down himself on occasion, where he isn't only a threat to score, but to find the open man. That passing ability is the true key in unlocking this style of offense, because with the ball in his hands, they're enabling him to make decisions and essentially control everything that's going on. And they've wasted no time getting creative with how they weaponize him. One thing they've been doing quite a bit is starting their possessions with him running off a down screen to catch the ball near the elbow, and like I said, he's gonna consistently make the right decisions with the ball. As I mentioned, some of these possessions are very Nuggets-esque, a playmaking 5 running the offense, wings cutting and screening all over the floor, although Denver doesn't have a 7'1" sniper. Even when they aren't initiating possessions through Ihart, his presence alone serves as a great release valve. With no advantage, they can just get the ball to him on the elbow and start moving. From there, good things are going to happen. And all that's to say, whether Isaiah Hartenstein ends up playing 15, 20, or 30 minutes a game, whatever that rotation looks like, he brings an entirely different dynamic to OKC's offense. Just 2 elite traits, screening and passing, unlock so much movement, freedom, and versatility for all 5 guys on the court. As for the minutes where he's on the bench, well, I can tell you right now that Caruso's not gonna have any trouble fitting in. Like I said, we all know that they love to use their guards as screeners, often to create favorable matchups, and they also love to space their guards in the dunker spot to take away rim protection. So by forcing a switch, then immediately clearing to the baseline, Caruso's just simply executing his job. One thing I've taken notice of though, is that even without Ihart on the floor, they've made an effort to implement those same actions with their other bigs so that they can still simulate a motion style of offense. And with Chet in the middle of the floor, you don't have the same sort of passing or screening, but you do have a significantly bigger scoring threat from just about everywhere. So when he's the one setting up action on the perimeter, his man has to apply pressure in fear of him taking that outside shot. Instead of waiting for a pass though, he can also attack the rim in isolation, as he's not at all a normal 7-footer. It could mean a lot for his growth and development as a player to have this added burden as a decision maker. This is a really high level play from him, flowing from a pick and pop straight into a second dribble handoff with J-Dub. And remember what I said about Jalen's 3-point shooting? All things considered, we're looking at a truly elite and really a revolutionary type of offense. I use that word revolutionary because everything that's defined this era of hyper-efficient offense is a part of their approach in some way. They've got the 5-out look with Chet in the middle. They've got the delay action, motion style of offense with Ihart in the middle. They use ball screens and ghost screens from smalls to create mismatches, open threes, or create an advantage to set up a second action on the weak side with an empty corner. Schematically, their offense is about as perfect as it gets, and it all comes down to player execution. Last year, they had the third best offense in the NBA. When taking into consideration potential internal development and everything else I talked about, I don't think it's far-fetched to suggest that they could be number 2, or maybe, just maybe number 1. The craziest part though, you could argue that they're even better on the other side of the ball. I won't go too in-depth on their defense because a few preseason games haven't shown us much from a strategic standpoint. I just want to briefly go over how absurd their defensive personnel is. On this play, you have Case and Wallace pressuring the ball at the logo, while Caruso attentively defends the nail. There's no advantage created at the point of attack, so Tre Jones moves it to the wing for a drive, which Caruso of course stonewalls, while J-Dub reaches in with his 7'2" wingspan. The funniest part about that whole sequence though, is that of their 3 primary point of attack defenders, Wallace is pretty easily the weakest because the other 2 are nothing short of elite. Whether it's Alex Caruso or Lou Dort, good luck creating any sort of offense. And if the opponent tries to hunt for mismatches, who exactly is the weak link? Because it certainly isn't Shea or J-Dub. The 2 weakest defenders in the rotation are probably Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins, neither of which I'd consider to be a true liability. But let's just say for a second that an offense is able to consistently penetrate that first line of defense. That's where the other 2 guys come in. Chet spent most of his time as a lone 5 last season, and OKC already had the number 4 defense. Hartenstein has only ever played the 5, and he's been a part of some really good team defenses in that traditional anchoring big role. So, much like the Mavs during last year's finals run, you're getting 48 minutes of high-level center play defensively. But, unlike the Mavs, these guys can also coexist on the floor together, creating some absolutely ridiculous lineups. Both offer a serious vertical presence, so it'll be hilarious to watch teams get past one 7-footer only to run into another. And both are mobile enough to the point where you feel okay with them defending in space when needed, so it's not like they're sacrificing mobility just to get more size on the floor. To add more to that point, Chet moves really well for his size. No, he isn't a switch everything 1 through 5 defender, but he can cover a lot of space and stick with teams' weaker perimeter creators pretty easily. So the dynamic to me is a lot like that of Giannis and Brook in Milwaukee. You've got Chet playing free safety and defending in space when needed, while Ihart patrols the middle like a more traditional big. The only difference is that instead of Dame and friends at the point of attack, it's Caruso, Dort, Wallace. I think you get the idea. Like I said, they already had the 4th best defense in the NBA last season. They replaced Josh Giddey in their rotation with Alex Caruso. They replaced Jalen Williams in their rotation with Isaiah Hartenstein. I can't possibly overstate what this team's defensive ceiling is, and unless Minnesota's a complete outlier like last year, there's a very serious chance they rank number 1. Now, I know it sounds absurd, but in this video I've stated that I believe there's a chance OKC has both the number 1 offense and the number 1 defense. Throughout all of NBA history, that has only happened 2 times. The Bucks did it in 1971, and the Bulls did it in 1996. Those are arguably 2 of the 3 best teams ever, and I'm not trying to say OKC's at that level, so before you destroy me in the comments, just know that I'm not betting on OKC ranking number 1 in both categories. I feel like a more realistic outcome is like a number 3 offense and a number 2 defense, which is still rare territory and would yield an absurd regular season. As a result, barring injuries, I'd genuinely be surprised if the Thunder don't win 60 games this season. I know the West is stacked. I know nobody won 60 in that conference last year, but if I were making a bold prediction, I think a record like 64-18 is 100% in play. Does that make them the favorites in the West? Or maybe even the entire league? Well, we'll have to wait and see, but just know I've bought as much stock as I possibly can in this squad, and you should too, because they are looking seriously dangerous. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out my website and social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you think of the Thunder. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.